Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's podcast. Today, we are talking about childhood apraxia of speech, a condition where the children know what they want to say, but they struggle to express it clearly. To help us understand this better, today we have the director of Dimension Center for Child Development, Ms. Chitra Taratil. Hello, ma'am. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you, Akansha. Lovely to have you on board.
Thank you, ma'am. So, would you like to express some words about your center and would you like to tell us about the vision of your center and the organization's vision?
Dimension Center for Child Development was founded with a vision to provide child centric services that are research based for children with developmental delays in order to help them gain independence and find their position in the society at large.
As it is the month of CAS, that is Childhood Apraxia of Speech, would you help our listeners understand what is CAS and how does it affect children?
Childhood apraxia of speech, or CAS, is a neurological condition where the brain knows what it wants to express, but the muscles of the mouth are unable to plan and coordinate the movement essential for producing that word or that phrase and sentence. So, with the lengthier the utterance, the complexity increases and the clarity of speech reduces. In a gist, this is childhood apraxia of speech. For example, to say a word mama, the child needs to understand how he will put together ma and make it mama. This comes naturally for a majority of the children, but when a child has an apraxic component, it becomes effortful to put these words together because the muscles do not coordinate to put this word out. It becomes more challenging when the big words are bigger. For example, banana, hospital, octopus. These words are much more complex, and the word banana might one day sound like nana, another day it would be baba, another day it could be na na na, or another day or at another time this word may not even come out. That is the typical condition that we see in children with childhood apraxia of speech. Childhood apraxia of speech is most likely not a muscle weakness. Even without an evident weakness of the muscles, the child might have these coordination and motor planning difficulties to produce the words. The problem here is not the weakness of the muscles or the lips or the tongue or the jaw essential for speech output, but it is more to do with the brain's ability to motor plan and coordinate the movements essential for speech output. Therefore, in intervention, working on muscle strength must not be the core of what we do. It should be more to help the brain and body connect.
So it is completely different what people thought earlier that it's an issue of muscle contractions, whatever. Now we understand it is not the major core issue. There are different things that we have to focus on. So basically, what would be the common signs of CAS that parents can understand seeing their children? Because in India, if you see a lot of people, a lot of parents, they don't understand the issues and they react without knowing it. So, can you tell us the basic or the common signs through which parents and the caregivers can understand this?
In childhood apraxia of speech, what we commonly see is an inconsistent error pattern, like the banana example, where one day it's banana, another day or another time it's na na na, or the word doesn't come out. That is one clear indicator, inconsistent errors in speech sounds. Another indicator is groping of the muscles. You can evidently see strain when the child is trying to put out a word. Sometimes the muscles move, the sounds don't come. That is another sign that we see. The vowels in childhood apraxia of speech are inconsistent. Now, vowels add meaning to a word. For example, a word like cap, it has k, a, p. What if the a becomes eh? It becomes kep.
Yeah.
Vowels are very important in making meaningful words. Now, when vowel errors are inconsistent, it becomes extremely hard for the child to make people around them understand what they're speaking or becoming clear. A child with childhood apraxia of speech may have some of these common signs, which helps us to identify it from other speech conditions. For example, the child may have inconsistent errors in the speech sounds. The word banana would sound differently at different times and at different days. Inconsistent errors in vowel sounds. So the vowels add meaning to a word, or they make the word legible or clear. For example, a word like cat. K, a, t. Cat becomes more meaningful only when only when the vowel a makes meaning to it. But when k, a, t becomes k, e, t, it becomes ket.
Yeah.
That doesn't actually add meaning to the word cat.
Yeah.
This is another common sign we see in childhood apraxia of speech. We will also see unusual stress patterns or challenges with rhythm and intonation. The child might sound choppy or very robotic. For example, instead of saying, "Hey, how are you?" the child might say, "Hey, how are you?"
Yeah.
And that makes it really hard for them to express themselves fully, express their emotions completely. Another common sign is groping movements. When the child is trying to say a word, you can actually see a lot of strain and stress right from the neck to the mouth. Sometimes they are attempting to say a word, but the sounds just don't come out. And we can see that effort, and it's also called as effortful speech. Children with an apraxic component will also have difficulties in moving from one sound to the other. Now, only when you move from ma to another ma, it becomes mama.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it stops at ma. And this movement of one sound to another is extremely hard for many children with an apraxic component. And when children don't have rhythm, prosody, they have challenges in moving from one sound to the other, then words become harder. And the more larger the words, the more longer the utterance, the more unclear their speech becomes, which is what we see as one of the characteristic traits, that with longer utterances, the speech clarity becomes more reduced or more unclear to understand. In a general term, if I have to give you an example of what we have discussed about this, for example, if a child says go, the word go might sound clear, but when the child has to say, "Go, mama, go out, I want to go ride a bicycle," or "Ready, get, set, go," then the clarity reduces because the sentence length has now increased. These are some of the common signs of childhood apraxia of speech. Parents also come to us complaining that the child's comprehension or understanding is good, or it's way ahead of their expressive speech. That's another very common sign that we see, that their receptive language is much better than their expressive speech. Given all of these complex signs, childhood apraxia of speech cannot be diagnosed casually. It has to be very carefully identified, observed, and documented in order to give the right diagnosis, which in turn is going to help us to give better treatment outcomes.
Now let's answer a question that many parents ask. Is CAS same as the articulation problem, or it is a general speech clarity difficulty?
CAS is not the same as any articulation difficulty or a speech clarity challenge that we see in general public, because CAS is more to do with how the brain and body are connected. In a general articulation related difficulty, a child might have a specific sound difficulty. And for example, it could be that the child says tat for cat. Every time there is a k sound, the child substituted for t sounds. Or the child says wabbit for rabbit, wat for rat. It's a specific clarity related issue, and it is connected with a certain type of mispronunciation. And for these children, we can give repetitions. For example, you can get the child to say 10 times ka, and then get the child to say ka, at, cat. We can give prompts, we can give a lot of cueing that we could in intervention, and the child will get it. But in childhood apraxia of speech, that's not the condition. That's not the case. Here, there is inconsistent errors. So one day it's cat, one day it's wat, one day it's at, one day it's ca.
Okay.
Because of the inconsistency in errors, it's going to be extremely hard for the child to put across what they want to say, and for the clinician and for the parent to understand what is the child trying to express. This is also going to relate to other emotional conditions or psychosocial concerns because the child knows what they want to say, but they're not able to fully express it. And each day they try to say it, or each time they're trying to say it, it can be extremely hard for them to make people understand. And when people around them, like their own parents, cannot understand what they want to say, it's going to be very frustrating for the child. And if this is going to go on, it can also lead to other behavioral conditions. It again depends on the severity. Here, the therapist should not just teach speech sounds. The therapist must be able to help the child to sequence that motor movement consistently with clarity.
So earlier you said that when the children know what they want to say, but it is difficult for them to express it clearly, and it leads into a lot of frustration when the parents don't understand it. So can you tell our listeners what the parents can do their best to help the children ease out the difficulties?
This is a lovely question, and I think very important too. When children are not able to fully express themselves because of an underlying neurological condition, the environment should be extremely supportive. Because if, as family members, parents, therapists, when we are not sensitive about it, we can actually be very discouraging to the child, and they may not make strides in therapy, or they may not make strides in daily conversations to their fullest potential. Here are a few things that parents can avoid doing. One, asking the child to be more clear. It's not that they are not trying, but the brain-body connection has a mismatch, which is preventing the child from doing their best. But try to understand what the child is saying with the given environmental cues and what is contextual, and facilitate the child. Do not compare your child with others. Because that can be very challenging and very discouraging, and the child might stop coming out with new utterances or might stop attempting to speak at all. Avoid asking the child to repeat over and over again. That will increase the frustration. Be open to accept alternative augmentative communication methods, which could be using of picture cards, objects. It could be the use of gestures to communicate. Parents should support children to do this, because when we accept all forms of communication, the child feels a lot more safer, and the child is ready to communicate much more than what they would otherwise do. What we're trying to help parents understand is that communication is much more than speech. Communication could be gestures, use of pictures, use of objects, use of contextual cues, whole body movement, facial grimaces, eye gaze. All of this is communication. When we accept all forms of communication, we are facilitating the child to interact and engage and participate in the environment more. But when we are limiting the child only to speech, and that too to clear speech, then we are preventing every opportunity and putting barriers for the child to communicate and to express themselves. So parents should accept all forms of communication. And if your therapist is recommending the use of AACs, alternative augmentative communication systems, be open and willing to accept it, because that will not prevent speech. In fact, it will promote communication. It will promote speech eventually. Another thing parents must not do is turning every opportunity into a therapy event. making every opportunity to elicit speech or making it like speech therapy, because children don't want therapists at home. The child wants the mother or the father, not a
Yes.
therapist sitting there constantly correcting every word that they're saying. And even in therapy, speech therapists don't do that. So children need a warm, loving environment at home, an environment that makes the child feel emotionally safe. At the heart of everything you do, have the connection with your child as the most important thing, which is much more important than speech in itself.
I hope a lot of parents go through this, our conversation, a lot of our listeners go through our conversation and they understand the importance of the parents' role for the children here. So, there's some more things I want to go deeper into it. So, at your center, I would like to know like if the parents are getting involved with whatever you're helping the children to do, are they trying to understand? Will they be here to understand and work on it for themselves also? As you told that the parents have to be very careful and they have to be parents more than a mentor or a therapist or whatever the other roles they're taking part into, but at home they have to be parents, but they have to be way more careful about it. So what is happening at your center? How are parents reacting to it?
Yeah, here at our center, we involve parents in co-decision making. We involve parents in therapy planning. Parents get a copy of all the goals that is worked in therapy every single day. Parents know what are all the plan that the therapist has made, what were the activities that were used. And at the end of every session, the therapist and the parent are having a conversation. We welcome parents into the session to be a part of what's happening in the intervention program. So parents will know how to implement it back at home.
Yeah.
And we make it mandatory that once a week parents come in and be a part of the intervention program. In this way, they learn along with the therapists. And they're welcome to join into therapy any part of the day, any point in time while the sessions are going on. And the therapist also shares with the parent what they can do at home. It may not be everything that the therapist did at that particular day, but maybe one or two strategies. For example, we are teaching the child up. So whenever you go up the stairs, you say, let's go up, up. We go up, up. Because repetition matters in childhood apraxia of speech. And that has to happen in real life situations. This makes language learning in childhood apraxia of speech more meaningful. And when there is meaning added to what they are learning, children are excited and they feel motivated to learn more. But when it is redundant and there's no meaning added in intervention, that's when they lose interest. So in this way, the therapist and the parent collaborate. They discuss what to do next and how it can be implemented at home.
Yeah.
This is a fairly new topic for many professionals and parents too. So we are picking momentum here, and I'm positive that it's going to become more intensive and more easier to implement for parents and clinicians in the coming days.
It does. So going forward, like I want to know about CAS a little bit more in deeper. So as you were saying, the things like whatever the speech difficulties are there, do you think just the speech, what we are talking around them and doing the activities would help, or visualization plays an important role to it?
Visuals are very important in therapy.
Yeah.
Because when you hear something, you can easily forget. But when you see, you don't forget it that quickly. Which is why we use objects, we use toys, materials, we use flashcards in therapy. They add more meaning. For example, the vowel A. When we want to teach them vowels and we want to make vowel A meaningful, there's a flashcard that shows someone opening the mouth. Ah. So that's the flashcard.
Yeah.
So when the child sees the flashcard ah, it makes sense to the child. Hey, the sound vowel, they don't understand it as a vowel or a consonant, but they know, okay, the sound ah actually looks like this.
Yeah.
It becomes easier for them to see and learn. So yes, visuals are a core part in intervention, and they were very powerful.
So let's go and dig deeper. What should the therapy for CAS look like?
Speech is a motor skill. So therapy must look like building a motor skill. For example, let's go back to a time when we learned to ride a bicycle.
Yeah.
What was the process? We had someone to teach us. In childhood apraxia of speech, you need someone to teach the child.
Yeah.
It's a motor plan. We learn how to sit on a bicycle, which side we will hop on from, how we'll hold the handlebar, and how we'll start pedaling. It is a motor plan. It's a motor movement we are learning. And this requires feedback. In speech therapy, the therapist needs to offer feedback. Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Can we try a little harder? Can we do it one more time? Uh-oh, it sounded like "ter" to me. Can you try "k" once again? Let me prompt you and support the child to produce the sound "k."
Yeah.
Tactile, using tactile input. That will help the child to get the right feedback. One is through tactile, which is touch base for "k." The child also hears, I could try it better. It sounded like she's cueing me with her hands and fingers. I can feel it. That feedback is important. That feedback will help them to correct that error and do it better the next time. But again, like in the riding a bicycle, if the person who's teaching us is constantly correcting us or constantly using negative words and is constantly hurrying us, we lose interest, we lose motivation. Likewise, in speech therapy, for a child with apraxia of speech, if the therapist is going to be constantly using negative feedback, negative words, or the therapist is going to hurry the child, or the parent is going to do this, the child will lose interest, lose motivation.
So you mean they'll stop trying?
They may stop trying. Or they're not going to be confident. They are in a fight or flight mode by now. Their brain just shuts down. So therapy has to be very rewarding.
Yeah.
Like how when you ride a bicycle, the person who's training you say, yes, you did it.
Yeah.
You got it. You got your balance. Now focus on your handlebar. It's feedback that is positive. And in childhood apraxia of speech therapy, we need feedback that is positive, that is encouraging, that's motivating. And we need repetitions in order to become proficient in riding that bicycle. You're going to practice it every single day until you get it right, because it's so interesting. Likewise, when we make it interesting and when we make it movement based, children thrive and they need repetition. And if you ride a bicycle 2 days a week and you don't ride the bicycle the rest of the 5 days of the week, when you go back the next day, it's going to be challenging to plan and move and, go confidently. Likewise, in apraxia of speech therapy, if therapy is inconsistent, if we just do once a week, then the progress will accordingly be minimal. However, if there is consistency in therapy, research says there should be at least 3 days a week. That's bare minimum. Then you will see good progress. And if you do consistent practice every single day, then the progress is exponential accordingly. So in childhood apraxia of speech, we need repetition, we need consistency, we need positive feedback, we need predictability. What are you going to do next? Someone to guide you, and setting the challenges to the just right level. The speech sound shouldn't be too difficult. It shouldn't be too easy. Because if it's too easy, they lose motivation. If it's too hard, they get easily discouraged. So the practice method should challenge the child's intellect and abilities to the just right level. When we do this, gradually speech becomes much more clearer and you see more motivation from the child and the progress is ongoing.
So at what age does a kid start speaking generally?
A child starts speaking around 1 year of age. By 1 year, they say their first meaningful word. By 1.5, they start using a word and an action or 2 words sometimes. And by 2 years of age level, they're definitely using 2 word combinations.
Okay.
They're able to say 100 to 200 words.
Okay. So if parents are keenly observant and they are observing their kids, so if the child is not speaking anything for the 2 years, beginning 2 years, so what should they do? First thing.
If a child is not speaking by 2 years of age, that is definitely a red flag for us to know that something is not okay.
Yeah.
And you have to immediately consult with a speech and language therapist to identify why is there a speech delay. The speech therapist will either onboard you into speech therapy if it is just a language delay or an expressive language delay. However, if the speech therapist identifies it could be much more than a language delay, it could be neurological or there are other conditions associated, accordingly they will refer the parents to a neurologist or a developmental pediatrician or to a pediatrician to identify something that is missing or something that is beyond a speech delay.
So thank you for explaining this to our listeners. So there's one more question. So by what age can we identify if the child has the childhood apraxia of speech?
Generally, by 1 year of age, the child has already started coming up with their first few words.
Yeah.
And by 2, they're able to combine 2 words.
Yes.
But when children have a language delay, say by 2 years of age, the child is not yet spoken. Your question, I think, is more to do with how do you identify a child with childhood apraxia of speech, by what age you can identify.
Yes.
It's a little tricky because if a child hasn't yet spoken, it can be very hard to know if the child has an apraxia component or not.
Okay.
What I generally see for is the ability to motor plan. I give simple activities for the child and I see if they're able to imitate what I'm doing. Some things like this. I say, do this. By 2 years of age, a child should be able to do that imitation. And then I say, do this. The child should be able to do that gesture. But simple gestures like these, we have about 5 to 10 gestures, and the child is not able to do those, then we know the child has difficulties in imitation.
Yeah.
That indicates a motor planning difficulty, challenges with sequencing movements. In order for them to do this, there are 2 times the hand is clapping, right? You have to take the hand up, put them together, and do it 2 times at least. That is the sequence of movements. When the child is not able to do these sequences, we put a question mark, childhood apraxia of speech component. Well, this alone doesn't decide apraxia component, but we see, okay, maybe this child is at a risk for it.
Yes.
Then our intervention module changes to focus more on imitation activities, to focus on motor movements, sequencing them, coordinating them right from the start. And we don't want to overlook a simple imitation difficulty as just a delay or just one of the conditions or one of the components of autism or ADHD and move on. We want to take it seriously and we want to start intervention modules right from the first day of intervention.
So basically, there are parents who have ignored these difficulties and it has been a very long time that they have ignored and the kid has grown big now. So how does it affect in the initial period and after such a long period of time?
Parents usually don't choose to ignore.
Yes.
Many times they are told by people around them, oh, your child is just speaking late. You ask them to repeat, eventually they will repeat. My cousin spoke at 6 years of age. Your father spoke when he was 4 years old. Your child will speak. So parents are made to believe that it is not a big issue or it's not something they need to really pay attention to. And they tend to overlook these aspects and they delay coming to a therapist.
Yeah.
By 5 years of age, the brain acquires almost adult-like speech development. So if they come late, then the speed at which the child is progressing has reduced and the progress or the speed at which we can acquire progress reduces compared to parents who come to us at 1 year, 1.5 years of age.
Mm.
There we see tremendous progress. So if your child is late to talk, do not overlook it,
Yeah.
but take it seriously.
Mm.
Yes, maybe your father spoke at 4 years or your brother spoke at 6 years of age,
Mm.
but those days are different to what we are living in now. And now the conditions are different. There is genetic conditions, there are epigenetic conditions, and we want to take interventions seriously and not lightly.
Yeah.
Earlier the intervention, the faster the progress.
Yes. So one last question related to all these things. Like I've seen many people, or I think you have seen many people also. Once the word comes in as a therapy, people don't accept it. The parents don't accept it. What should be the answer to this, or whatever? How can they understand that they don't have to take it in the way of a therapy, but try to understand the kid or their child?
Yeah, the word therapy attaches a stigma to it.
Yes.
Something is wrong with my child, so I'm going for therapy.
Hmm.
I think we need to come out of that notion now.
Yes.
So the world is fast progressing.
Hmm.
Earlier, people hesitated to wear glasses. Now, the glasses are so trendy. People want to wear glasses because it's so stylish.
Yes.
So we need to move from stigma. What is seen as a stigma today will not be seen as a stigma tomorrow.
Yeah.
And given the number of children who are coming into therapy centers with language delays, I think we as a community should become more inclusive.
Yeah.
Not put parents on a spot when they are attending therapy,
Hmm.
but be positive, be supportive of that.
Yeah.
And the word therapy should not attach stigma. It should see that we need help. We all need help.
Yes.
And it is okay to take help. And it's okay to ask for help.
Yes.
That's something that we as a community need to imbibe, because it's not just the parent, it's the community. When the community is open to words like therapy, words like intervention, then it becomes easier for families to approach people like us.
Yes.
So it's not just the parent, it's the community that needs to look into it. And as a community, we need to embrace these terms and find support for children at the right time.
Can CAS therapy happen online?
Definitely. CAS therapy should happen online. And in fact, we are doing it online for many of our families reaching out to us from different parts of the world. Here, the strategy varies. Online therapies must not be seen as a different type of therapy. It's a different mode. It's a different mode of therapy. What you're doing in person, like how we are having a conversation, we're looking each other and doing it.
Yeah.
In an online intervention model, there is a system between these two people.
Yes.
And they're connected through the internet. So we're looking at each other through a monitor. That's the difference. And that's how it has to be seen. Because there's another human on the other side who's live, connecting and engaging with the child and the caregiver.
Yes.
An add-on for an online session is that the parent has to be involved more closely in intervention than an in-person model.
Yeah.
Because in an in-person, the therapist is able to give cueing. Say they have to give a tactile cueing. The child has to say the sound but the child is not able to put the lips together. What does the therapist do? The therapist gives a prompt and says or the therapist says and the child gets a sound
Yeah.
However, in an online session, the therapist is not sitting next to the child and getting the child to say
Yeah.
This is something the parent will learn from the therapist and implement it for the child. So the parent becomes a co-therapist. The parent is simultaneously doing interventions with the child. So without a parent's full availability online, therapy cannot be successful, because first of all, they're kids and they need intervention and they need support and supervision, all the more when it comes to intervention methods that depend on touch, visual cards, toys, objects, materials, repetitions, consistency. Parents need to be fully available for online intervention model.
Yeah.
The camera or the monitor should be positioned in a way that there is adequate light on the therapist's face as well as the child's face, because that is what is going to give us a feedback. A hybrid model will be really great because when they come in person, we're able to see the movement and the touch and the feel of that particular muscle movement. It's going to add to it. But when families are living really thousands of miles away from us, that is practically not possible. Nevertheless, intervention methods are definitely going to make a significant impact, which we've already seen in many children. Another thing is these practices need not go up to 1 hour. Since it's online, children tend to lose interest very quickly. So short bursts of intervention has to be focused in therapy. For example, instead of giving a practice session or an online therapy session, an in-person therapy session for 40 minutes at a stretch, an online model could be more like a 10-minute practice session, a 2-minute movement break, a 5 minute of the child just excitedly sharing with the therapist about a new toy they found, and then back to a practice session where we focus on repetition, consistency, and feedback for speech clarity, specific to apraxia of speech. Yes, for some children, online therapy can really work well. We call it telepractice, teletherapy, teleinterventions. And we've seen many children benefiting it also from different parts of the country, different parts of the world from where parents connect with us for interventions. What we need to keep in mind is that it's just a different mode of therapy. Therapy strategies and methods don't significantly change. In person, we look at each other and do, and we are able to touch and feel the movement of the muscles, etc. In online, the difference is there is a screen between the two people and they're connecting through the screen. And the touch and the tactile input has to be given by the parent or the caregiver. So the parent or caregiver's involvement in intervention is crucial. And the success depends upon their involvement. And for children who have difficulties in regulating themselves, we need to do intervention models that are more regulation based. They could be more parent coaching based, where the parent learn and implement. I have a child who works with me online. There are days he will respond. There are days he would work with me very well online. But there are days he just wouldn't want to do anything because he's emotionally dysregulated. Maybe he didn't have a great day at school. Maybe someone told something just before he entered the session. And when kids have certain neurological conditions involved, regulation could be a huge difficulty. So sometimes my sessions are focused on just regulation. We have the parent to just sit beside the child and we are regulating the child through popping some bubbles that the parent blows. And even the speed at which the parent blows the bubble, we are helping the parent to understand. And there are times that when children are not engaging with the clinician through the screen, we coach the parent and we say, all right, the child is not ready today. Maybe he's too sleepy, because most of the time zone differences are a big barrier for us. What is 9 a.m. for us is 8:30 p.m. for them. And children are ready to go to bed. How much can they do at that time? So what we recommend parents to do is we say, focus on regulation like this, focus on these activities to get the mouth movement, synchronize mouth movements, coordinate to elicit these sounds. And we give the parents 3 to 5 activities or goals to work on. And we encourage parents to take mini videos and share it with us. Then we evaluate with the video and say, that's a great strategy. That technique worked. This didn't work. Could we change it like this? So in this way, we guide families across borders through our screens. And that has made significant impact in many children's lives.
So thank you, Ms. Chitra Taratil. So before we end the session, can you give our listeners some key takeaways?
Sure. I'll give you at least 5 key takeaways for you. Firstly, understand that the child is not being stubborn or lazy. It's just that their brain and the body is not syncing in a way that the child can bring in their expressions or their words with clarity. It is more to do with how they are motor planning and coordinating the movements of the mouth to execute the speech sound that they intend to. 2, accept all forms of communication. We emphasize a lot on speech, and we're forgetting that communication is not just speech. While talking to you, I've used so many facial expressions. I move my hands, we smile at each other, we nod our heads. All of this is a form of communication. So, speech is not the only form of communication. As caregivers, as parents, as clinicians, we must embrace all forms of communication. 3. Speech is a movement. Childhood apraxia of speech intervention must consider movement in intervention to get optimal outcomes. And it's not just the mouth movements, sometimes even gestural movements. Like for ah, you open out the hands to gesture ah. That is also movement. We are using the whole body in intervention. And that will also help children to reach their outcomes. 4. Consistent practice is mandatory. Without repetition and consistency, we will not get optimal outcomes. Practice, practice, practice. Lastly, and most importantly, it has to be functional. We need to teach, as a therapist, for me, I need to teach the child what is functional. What are the functional words the child needs to learn? It can't just be a bare minimum of R, E, U, but more than that. It needs to be meaningful words like give, come, no, yes. These are all functional words. And we need to take it from where the child is already functioning. Is a child at the level of just vocalizing? Then we can consider sounds like uh-oh, while eating food. Those things can be imbibed in intervention because the functional level for the child at that point in time is vocalizations. Within that, what is it that we can pick in intervention and how can we make that more meaningful so the child is able to communicate with the people around them? If the child is at a word level and the child is able to say go, then take that word go and add it to other words like go mama, go out, go fast, ready, set, go. These are ways in which that one meaningful word can become functional and gradually expand. And it has to be consistent and gradual, not too difficult or not too easy because that will kill motivation. I hope this has helped, these 5 key takeaways, and you will implement it in your daily routines as parents and as therapists in your sessions.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.